Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Israel has started pumping gas from a major offshore reservoir in what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hailed an important day for the Israeli economy. The Tamar oil reserve has begun to yield natural gas, bringing Israel one step closer to energy independence. 4 years after the discovery of oil off the coast of Israel, the Jewish state successfully pumped and transferred natural gas to onshore facilities. Experts estimate that the Tamar and Leviathan natural gas reservoirs will provide Israel with enough natural gas for decades and eventually transform the Jewish state into an energy exporter.
The United Nations Security Council met last week to discuss the threat that the war in Syria is posing to UN peacekeepers stationed in the Golan Heights. Violence has spilled over the buffer zone between the two nations into Israel. As the civil conflict escalates, the peacekeeper situation has become increasingly volatile. 21 UN observers were taken hostage by Syrian rebels 2 weeks ago and held captive by the resistance fighters for 3 days. The Security Council released a statement expressing grave concern over the presence of Syrian Arab Republic armed forces within the area of separation. It went on to say that the UNSC calls on all parties, including the armed elements of the Syrian opposition, to respect the freedom of movement of its disengagement observer force, including the safety and security of UNDOF personnel, stressing that primary responsibility for such rests with the Syrian government. Both Japan and Croatia have announced their intentions to withdraw their soldiers from the area, and the Security Council is now considering the recall of all UNDOF staff from the buffer zone.
2 IDF soldiers and an Israeli youngster were wounded in annual Land Day riots last week. March 30th is known in the Arab world as Land Day, commemorating violent Arab protest in 1976 in which 6 Arabs were killed. Hundreds of Palestinians rioted, throwing rocks at IDF soldiers in Qalqilia. A 4-year-old Israeli boy was injured when protesting Arabs stoned the car in which he was a passenger on a road near Jerusalem. An Al Jazeera camera crew was attacked in northern Israel by Arabs waving PLO and Syrian flags. They accused the news crew of serving Israel in the international media. The Al Jazeera cameraman was hospitalized with a head wound. Thousands of Palestinians protested in Gaza, throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers near the border, and Arabs marched to the Israeli checkpoint near Rachel's tomb on the outskirts of Bethlehem. IDF soldiers used tear gas and other non-lethal means to disperse the angry mobs.
An Italian journalist reporting from Syria has exposed the plight of children caught in the violence that has ripped through the country for now more than 2 years. The photograph of a 7-year-old boy fighting with opposition rebels, identified as Ahmed, was published, depicting him clutching an AK-47 assault rifle for use against the Syrian army. The Human Rights Watch organization warned last year that the insurgents are using children as young as 14 to transport weapons and supplies, and have also been recruiting 16-year-olds to fight for their cause. The International Criminal Court defines the enlistment of children under the age of 15 as a war crime.
The IDF has established a field hospital to treat wounded Syrians who cross into Israel seeking medical attention. The military field hospital is located at Outpost 105 in the Golan Heights and is equipped to treat an array of injuries. There has been a steadily increasing number of Syrians crossing into Israel seeking help or medical treatment for wounds sustained in the Syrian civil war. The field hospital was built to provide on-site medical care without having to transfer the injured to hospitals throughout the country.
Security sources are reporting that Iran is advancing its nuclear weapons program at a murderous pace, predicting that the hardline Islamic Republic will have the resources to build an atomic bomb by this coming July. Last week, a former Iranian security official told an Israeli newspaper that by the end of 2012, the Iranians simulated a nuclear explosion, and since that time, they have escalated their development.
King Abdullah II has sworn in a new Jordanian cabinet. This is the first time that a Jordanian prime minister was elected by lawmakers. It marks the beginning of a gradual shift of power from the monarchy to parliament.
A recent poll has revealed that if given the opportunity, the majority of Palestinians would choose convicted terrorist Marwan Barghouti to lead them over current PA President Mahmoud Abbas. Barghouti is considered the founder of Fatah's Tanzim military wing and was the leader of both the First and Second Intifadas. He's currently serving 5 life terms in prison for his role in terrorist activities against Israeli civilians. The survey reflects a change of attitude among the Palestinian public, as just 3 months ago, another study indicated that the majority supported Abbas, who is perceived as a more moderate candidate.
Turkey has deported hundreds of Syrian refugees back to Syria for fighting in Turkish refugee camps and for clashing with Turkish security forces. According to reports, the unrest began when the refugees held large protests against the living conditions in the refugee camps. They threw stones at Turkish military police, who responded with tear gas and water cannons. According to reports, 600 to 700 refugees have been sent back to Syria from Turkey. The Turkish government denies the reports, and Ankara's foreign minister released a statement saying that 130 people who were identified as being involved in the camp riots crossed back into Syria voluntarily. The United Nations is investigating the claims of mass deportation of Syrian refugees. More than 1 million Syrians have fled the violence in their country, and at least 4 million people are said to be displaced within the war-ravaged country.
A disturbing new study conducted in Belgium has revealed that 50% of Muslim teenagers hold anti-Semitic views. The survey was conducted by 3 separate universities on behalf of the Flemish government at high schools in 2 major Belgian cities. The alderman for education in Antwerp, Claude Marinauer, said that he found the data most troubling and announced his plans to launch a program to fight anti-Semitism in Belgium's schools.
Israelis are demanding that the IDF change the rules of engagement to treat rock throwing the same as live fire. The move comes in response to the drastic increase of rock throwing incidents. Palestinians throw rocks at Israeli vehicles as a form of terrorism, and the occurrences have dramatically increased over the last few months. In December, there were 70 reported attacks. In January, there were 120. And in February, there were more than 250 stone-throwing incidents. A 3-year-old girl who was critically injured in a recent attack is still clinging to life in an Israeli hospital. There's also been an increase in attempted terror attacks in Judea and Samaria. According to Israel Security Services, there were twice as many attempted terror attacks in January of 2013 than in 2012. And in February, there were 138 attempted attacks.
25 train stations throughout eastern United States are hosting a virulent anti-Israel billboard campaign. The signs accuse Israel of being an apartheid state and say that the U.S. is to blame because of the aid that it gives to Israel and calls for an end to that assistance. The American Muslims for Palestine organization sponsored the campaign, launched to coincide with the Jewish holiday of Passover, as the second phase of a larger organized effort to spread anti-Israel propaganda on large billboards. The previous stage featured accusations of Israel stealing land from the Palestinians.
The State of Israel has officially become the world's largest Jewish population center. 6 million Jews live in Israel, making it the largest Jewish community in the world, followed by the United States and France. During Passover, the total population of Israel surpassed 8 million people. And over the last year, more than 170,000 babies were born in the small country, and more than 17,000 Jews made Aliyah to live in their homeland. This is the first time in modern history that Israel is home to the majority of world Jewry.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Steve Leibowitz, the president of American football in Israel. Steve, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
You know, I'm a huge football fan. I grew up in Dallas, and Dallas is God country family football. Go
I'm not
Cowboys.
sure in that order.
Not in that order sometimes, but hopefully. And to have American football in Israel is amazing. What led this to happen?
Well, when I came on Aliyah, there was no organized football. There was some softball, and I was playing in that league. And at a certain point, some friends and I got together, and we decided it's really missing in our lives, and we really wanted to play the game. We organized some guys. In the first couple of years, it ended up being flag. It ended up being, in fact, two-hand touch football, like we used to play in the old country in the streets. And then eventually we became a league that sought international recognition and international competition. We created a flag football league, and then 6 years ago we created the Israel Football League, which is a tackle football league and is now spread all over the country.
Well, the Israel Football League is really gaining steam, of course, with former Americans who made Aliyah and came here, who follow the NFL, watch football and play, but also with Israelis. How have you been able to get Israelis to understand, first of all, what is American football, how to play it, and then get them to join the actual league?
Well, if you've actually seen any of our games, you may not be so sure that they have understood all of the rules of the game or necessarily all the techniques of the game. The level is not yet at college level, for example. I think we've passed the high school level. It's difficult. We call it Hebrew in the huddle. We know that we've reached the point where we've gotten deeply into Israeli society when it's Hebrew instructions that are given inside that huddle rather than English. Most of our coaches have an American background. They grew up with the game. They maybe played high school football or college football or coached a little bit on some level. But the growing number of our players are actually Israeli taught. They start learning the game even on a high school level. We've created a high school league, and then they have to take a break because of Army service, and then they come back and they play in the adult league. At this point, the majority of our players are Israeli born.
You know, it's interesting. I was watching the Israel Bowl a few years ago, and the star quarterback was the son of Gabi Ashkenazi, the chief of staff of the Army of Israel. To see that kind of integration was really amazing. How popular is the Israel Bowl in Israel?
Well, we have managed to get a national television coverage on a major sports channel in Israel, so we've been showing it widely. I think that gives some illustration of how important even the Israeli media think it is. Itai Ashkenazi, the son of Gabi Ashkenazi, was a leading quarterback. He injured his neck. He's now a coach in our high school league. And his entire team in Kfar Saba is made up of guys that are before their army service, all of them heading into elite combat units, including Sayeret Matkal, which is one of our top elite units in the army. And that's where Itai served, and many of those youth have found that football is great training for their eventual army service. As far as the physical part of it, as far as the hits that they have to take, as far as the strategy that they need to learn, the teamwork that's so important in the army as it is on the football field.
You know, something that's also interesting about the league is the areas that the regions that the teams are coming from. There's the Jerusalem Kings, there's the Judean Rebels from the mountains of Judea, there's the Tel Aviv Sabres, who are coming, who are actually the Israel Bowl champions. How has that regional play affected, the whole league?
Well, in the very beginning, it was mostly from the largest cities where there was an American base, like Jerusalem, where we ended up with 3 teams in the beginning, Tel Aviv, where there were 2. But now what's happened is we've spread all over the country. There are teams from Nahariya, right up on along the Lebanese border. In fact, they play in a field where there's a Hezbollah position looking down right on their playing field. You can see the Hezbollah flag with the naked eye all the way to the northern border and all the way down to Beersheba. In fact, we had a couple of games that had to be canceled this season or postponed because of the rocket fire from Gaza. So we spread all the way from the north to the south of the country. I'm not surprised that we developed as strongly as we did and as quickly as we did in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. I am surprised with just how much Israelis have taken to the game in places like Haifa and in Kfar Saba and Ra'anana and Petah Tikva and really everywhere in the country.
And we're hoping that there's going to be a Pro Bowl in Eilat so that we can come down there and cover it.
Well, we do have a tournament that we run in Eilat, actually in the flag football sphere, where we bring in teams from overseas that play in those international competitions every year. But we've gotten down to Beersheba. Eilat will be there eventually.
You know, one of the things that's amazing about the league is how Christians have been able to help. You play a lot of your games at the Baptist Village. You have coaches coming in. Tell us about how Christians have actually come and helped the American Football League.
Not only the Baptist Village, which has been a very, very central part of our development, because the Baptist Village attracts has a relationship with coaches in the United States. And a group of coaches have been coming on an annual basis already for 6 years, every summer, every Passover, every Sukkot, and they run clinics for our coaches and for our players. One of our teams in Jerusalem is sponsored by a very strong Baptist believer. And we have some players, some Christians in the United States that decided what they really want to do more than anything else in the world right now is take a year off, go to the Holy Land, live there, and play in our league. And we have several players like that are just taking a year off so that they can play football in Israel.
Well, you know, one of the big sponsors of the league is the owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, a true Zionist, a friend of Israel. But what other affiliation with the NFL does this league have, if any?
Well, we're affiliated with an international organization called the IFAF, the International Federation of American Football, and that organization has a direct relationship with the NFL. Instead of individually sponsoring and supporting countries' programs, they support one international program, and that international program helps all of the countries. Robert Kraft is our sponsor. The league is named after him. It's called the Kraft Family Israel Football League. Our main playing facility in Jerusalem is called the Kraft Family Stadium, and that is thanks to the Patriot owner. He comes to games. He's visited Israel, of course, on an annual basis, and he's even sponsoring our high school league now and some of our national teams in flag football. So I would say it's fair to say that without the Kraft family, we wouldn't be where we are today as far as football in Israel.
Well, Steve, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Football is a value, in my view. It's a game. It's more than a game. It involves strategy. It involves strengths. It involves belief. It involves teamwork. It's a natural for this country, as it is a natural and such a popular sport across the United States. We believe that we have a future eventually to make football one of the leading sports in this country. It'll never reach the level, certainly, of soccer and basketball, which have a culture that is that makes them the two largest sports by far and away. But with the help of our friends in the United States, our Christian and Jewish friends, football is going to continue to develop and grow throughout the country to the point where we hope someday we'll be the third largest sport in the state of Israel.
Steve, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, saying go Cowboys, and now back to the studio.
Up next, Shining Light from Israel.
This morning, I had another talk with the German Chancellor, Herr Hitler. And here is the paper which bears his name upon it as well as mine. We regard the agreement signed last night as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
When Hitler rose to power, no one believed that he would actually do the things that he said.
You know, our history teaches us something very simple. When an enemy says he's going to annihilate you, believe him.
Iran today poses a danger that threatens to engulf the entire world in chaos.
A nuclear-armed Iran is a grave danger to the peace and security of the entire world.
Diplomacy has failed.
Will sanctions work?
If diplomacy doesn't work, the clock could run out. We've wasted years on failed diplomacy. There's no chance that Iran will be talked out of its nuclear weapons program.
Iran is believed to be expanding right now its uranium enrichment activity deep inside of a mountain bunker.
Iran has tripled the pace of production of 20% grade uranium. They're transferring their facilities underground to be immune.
Time is running out.
They're racing towards acquiring a nuclear weapon.
None of us can afford to wait much longer.
ایران ملت‌های منطقه با مشت محکم دهن شما خواهند
وأن تكون قنبلة ذرية إيران وباكستان قنابل ضد إسرائيل ونهتف كما هتفنا في طهران مار جبار إسرائيل مار جبار أمريكا.
For the sake of our prosperity, for the sake of our security, for the sake of our children, Iran must
Stop
be
Iran
stopped
now. Last time, the world was silent. This time, our voices will be heard.
Stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
A few days after the war broke out, the Germans were in already. And they came to the backyard where I used to live, and with the boots, you know, and we got scared already. It was a deadline till 9 o'clock at evening. The Jews were allowed to go out. After 9, who will go out will be shot. My name is Leokadia Szlak. I am 87 years old. I was born in Poland, in Częstochowa. In 1939, when the war broke out, I lived still with my parents. 1942, I was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau. First, they took my mother. There was a stadion, through all the Jews on the stadion, in the select. The weakest go left, the stronger go right. You know, and my mother was the first that they took her, and I don't know till today where she ended up. And when I was in Birkenau already, I was told that they took my father and my sister. She was older than me. She went voluntarily. And my brother, I was told in Birkenau from men's, the men's were separated from the women's. So the man told me, a gentleman told me that my brother was in Gross Rosen, was also a concentration camp. And I don't know till today. I have no grave no nothing.
Once a year, in the warm spring sunshine, life in Israel comes to a complete stop. For 1 minute, Israelis around the country stop to remember the tragic death of over 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. Yom HaShoah is Israel's national day for Holocaust remembrance.
And when the war finished, when I was liberated in Dachau, the 28th of April 1945, I was staying like a skeleton without family, without nobody. I didn't have a place where to go. When I was liberated, I didn't think, where is my parents? Where are my siblings? I said, I want to eat. I was hungry. And this is today, you know, I can forgive myself that I didn't have in my mind my parents only food. And this is a very tragic. This is a tragedy. And the sentiments, you know, you can take away the sentiments. 6 million Jews perished, yeah, but we have a country today. And you know, sir, if we forget to speak from our past, we are doomed to repeat it.
In December of 2009, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, in partnership with an Israeli organization, raised funds to purchase an apartment building in Haifa to house and provide assistance to Holocaust survivors. Leocadia is one of the now 72 residents of what has become a one-of-a-kind assisted living community specifically designed for Holocaust survivors. The ICEJ continues to be an instrumental partner in the ongoing work of this community, which now encompasses 9 buildings.
I'm very grateful to God and to the Christian Embassy. They make it possible for me and for the other people, and I'm very grateful, very grateful.
Today, there are still thousands of Holocaust survivors who are in a sense forgotten and living below the poverty line in Israel. Help us to support these precious survivors while we still can.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rome.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all your Israel updates.